just your microphone.
Got the old timers going on. The process will be, we'll take nominations for chairman, vote for chairman, take nominations for vice chair, and vote for vice chair. So with that, I will open it to the floor for nominations for chairman.
Well, David, if you'll take it, I'll nominate you to serve for another year.
Any other nominees? In the absence of any other nominees, I'll ask for I hate to ask for a voice vote, but let's ask for just a voice vote. And all in favor, aye.
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 Opposed? I will accept gratefully the privilege and honor of serving for the chairman of the committee for the next year. Thank you. Now, do we have any nominations for vice chairman?
I would like to nominate Alex Xenopoulos.
Excellent. Any other nominees for vice chairman? In the absence of any further nomination, let's do a voice vote. All in favor, aye.
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 Opposed? No nays. Alex will be the vice chairman for the year of 2023. Thank you. Are you prepared to take minutes for this meeting, Alex?
Yes.
Excellent. So from there, let's go ahead and, did people have a chance to see the minutes?
Yes, I vote to
Yeah.
approve the minutes.
Nothing jumped out at me, but
Any corrections, additions? Have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve?
A motion, a second to the motion?
Second.
Excellent, approved. With that, we do have, Lisa has been kind enough, she had a conflict and has been kind enough to join us, but has to leave somewhat early. So I'd like to make a minor change in the order of things and move the student intern program discussions up. But maybe I'll take a minute on organizational issues, because we don't have too terribly much. This is the first meeting where I think I am the oldest legacy member of the committee. We lost both Joan and Kathy, whose terms ended last month, and we'll miss them. They've both been real yo people. Is that the appropriate pronoun for yeoman in the modern era? Yeah, yo people. And we do need to recruit to fill those two roles. That's number one. Number two, organizationally, I'm pretty sure that at the beginning of the school year this year, after we came back from the summer break, that Mary Ann sent out the meeting schedule for this year. And I'll ask her to send it out again and just ask people to check the schedule and to the best degree possible, see if we can avoid conflicts, especially when we're down a couple people, so that we can quorum up on that. I do have the sincerest apologies around the fact that although we're stated meetings third Monday every month at 5:30 p.m., it seems like that has been the least common time and date, but we are somewhat compelled by the availability of the room and the vagaries of Monday being a pretty popular day for legal holidays in the first half of the year, and the changes that occur sometimes without warning to Board of Commissioners. But if people can check their calendars and try and their best to be available, I think that would be highly appreciated. And I think that's all I have on organizational issues. Anybody else?
the only comment I wanted to make on that, because I know Seth and I actually talked about this a little bit, but and I don't know if now that the calendar's already put out for the full year, if this would more be a comment going forward even into the next year, but just that I think, at least for all of us and also for any new members who join, I think at the very least, if we could kind of standardize whatever the alternate day is when we can't meet on that Monday, because like, for example, this week we're meeting a week ahead of time as opposed to generally it's been we meet the Tuesday after. So I just think that might make it a little easier on everybody's schedules if at least, you know, we understand things come up in the township building, but if we could advocate for ourselves for some consistency with what the alternate day is.
I think that's a really totally reasonable request. I have been somewhat frustrated in trying to get further standardization on that. So what I'm going to suggest we do is, if you'll have a look, I'll have the current schedule sent out, and then I'll ask people to take a look at it and see if there are comments, because I think as a straw man, it's a great idea. The practicalities of it may evade us, but if people can have a look and make comments in regard to if there are when there are days that are not standard days, if you could bring up what alternatives might be. The other thing that we haven't, since we've come back to live, we have not necessarily always used the modern technology that might be available. So if people are compelled to travel or simply can't make it over here but could be available for the time slot, seeing if we can't, in the days before the meeting, set up Zoom for attendees who can't make it in person but would like to spend some or all of the time in the meeting. So let's press into that to the greatest degree possible. I'm being very wishy-washy there because I've tried and I've gotten nowhere, but I'm not unwilling to continue trying. So thanks, Alex. Any other comments? So with that, then I'm going to turn it over. I don't know whether Lisa or Alex want to start off and lead the conversations on the student intern program. But I'm going to turn it over to you guys.
So given not much time between last meeting and this meeting, including break in there, the main thing is that the students have done an excellent job with their kind of research gathering, their general information gathering. They have a really nice, 3-4 page in kind of the background information. Right now, the plan is to kind of gather their information as far as their first person, and I'm going to send it over to Khadija to give us a little bit of update on what they're planning to do for that.
Well, Ray and I have both worked on a lot of extensive research on like the causes, the consequences of sleep deprivation, and he also gathered a lot of info on the prevalence and risk factors of sleep deprivation amongst young drivers. He also provided some statistics on the amount of students that are sleep deprived. I have worked on gathering data on how much time students spend on their extracurriculars and sports. I've talked to like multiple sport teams like the soccer and hockey team and also my ultimate frisbee team, and they should get some data back to me by this Friday, hopefully. I also reached out to to clubs such as the Neuroscience Club, BSU, and the Multicultural Club, among others, to see if they can also get some data back to me on how much time they spend on extracurriculars and how much time they have for other things such as like homework. I'm also working on maybe asking members of the NHS to see if they can do the same, as they're really hardworking individuals who spend a lot of time on a lot of activities outside of school. Yeah, that's most of the update that we have.
So as well, Ray had said that you guys were working on kind of a Gantt chart. I don't know if you know what a Gantt chart is, but a timeline for your activities and reports, and I think that that is a great idea. And if possible, for our next meeting, I'd love to see what that looks like, how you've laid out responsibilities, timelines, and so on. I think that would be a really good idea. That's pretty much a standard approach to project management in large organizations, and I think it'd be valuable for you as well as for the board if you could lay that out for us.
I think you guys basically have that at the beginning of your document, which is kind of what your plan is each month.
Yes, we have that lined up already. We should be done with our data gathering by February, and we should be like starting the project, like setting up everything by March, hopefully.
Impressive, thanks. Any other comments or questions?
Yeah, they've done an excellent job kind of coming up what their plan is each month, to the extent of even like including practice presentation on their, on their list of goals for each month.
I'm impressed, it's excellent. So the other student intern, if there are no other comments, program agenda item was the issue that Alex had raised earlier on, and unfortunately, you and Seth have kind of passed as trains in the night, because Seth had some fairly strong opinions and some very good insights that he brought up in January, and I think I forwarded, he organized those, I think I forwarded that to you, Alex. I think that as a project for the board, I think there will be some disagreement, there will be some need for consensus, but I think if we can put the energy in over the course of the next several months through the end of this year's program, I think we can really supercharge what has already been a very rewarding program from the point of view of the township coming out of the board, and just gear it up a notch. So anything in that regard from you, Alex?
Yeah, so Seth and I did connect a little bit. I watched the meeting, even though I was unable to attend, and then I also, I think he copied me on the email he sent, and I think you also forwarded it to me, but so I did review kind of his bullet points. I think a lot of the suggestions he had were good ones in terms of some possible ways to expand the program and possibly partnering up interns with board members who might have particular expertise in a topic that they're interested in, as well as also putting out suggestions of topics. So, since theoretically we're we have other issues that we might be asking the students to take a look at as well. I think the only thing, I do think that we should still allow students to pitch their own idea for a topic as well. I think the topic that they came up with this year was a good one, and I mean, it's something that I wouldn't have thought of, even though it's kind of, right there, and I certainly lived that. I think probably a lot of us lived that as students. So I would like to see us still leave some room for, maybe with his suggestion of here are some topics that we'd be willing to help you on. I think it'd be good if we also leave a space for, or if you don't want to do one of these, pitch us something using kind of the format that we've used for a topic of your own. But I think, that the points you raised, like I said, were some good ones. I think, especially if we expand the program to some younger students, it might be helpful to have that guidance in terms of some ideas for topics for them. And, of course, I always think it's great when, our newest member of the board is getting in there and putting, some pen to paper. So, I definitely think, it's, as you've said, it's an ongoing discussion. We don't have to, decide anything final until next year, but part of the idea with doing this is that we get some of that work done ahead of time, so that we're not last minute emailing going, wait, how did we do this last year, and what do we want to do this year? So yeah.
Yeah, so I think that I'd love to see that by June we bring up, discuss, achieve consensus on, and codify the various topics that come into this. And I'm trying in my mind to organize it, because that's the only way I can keep things clear. But I think we had wanted to make some changes in how we solicit applications, in what the content of the applications might, that we're requesting might look like, on who we are qualifying, that is, say, which years, on how many, on how we choose topics, and then on the timeline of the projects. And I think if we can make progress on that array of, and come to some, hey, make some decisions, try it next year, works great, doesn't, ratchet it up again. So I think that we, I think it's a really good thing to take this on. And as you say, Alex, there's always urgency to get a project done, but there's no emergency here. Just we should keep pushing into it.
And the only other thing I'll add is that a lot of this work is being done off of the letters that Lisa had prepared for, prior years. So we definitely, as we're looking to keep going on that, want to thank Lisa for the work she did in getting us to the point we are now.
Excellent. So I think we keep going. I don't know that any additional action item except keeping on pushing into this, and as in the intervals between the meetings, as we communicate to each other. Again, no reply to alls because of the regulations of the committee that forms a meeting that then requires a quorum, but we can certainly do work in one-to-ones and small groups and one-offs to move the thing forward.
And sorry, as you're saying that, just a reminder for everyone, and Maggie, you can maybe correct me on this if I'm wrong, but I think as we're down to 7, that means that 4 is now a quorum, not 5, which also means that that's the new maximum for a reply all email. So just for anyone who's not aware of that.
Until we recruit two new
Do I have that
members.
Right, okay, so just in the interim, keep in mind that we, in terms of those kind of group offline discussions, we're now limited to 4 instead of 5 for those as well. But it also
And
means,
that includes yourself.
correct. But so just a friendly reminder for everyone.
Excellent, thank you. So, let's see, got that. So I think remains important to spend time on the general topic of respiratory illnesses being probably thank you, Lisa, the major source of ill health that we have going on right now. I'd like to start this month with an update on flu, which, as we discussed the last couple of months, there was an alarming characteristic to the flu outbreak this year, in that it started probably 4 to 6 weeks earlier than the usual fall flu outbreak, and it had an alarming upslope, and we did not know what the shape of that curve would be. But there's lots of news since then. The early fall flu outbreak, although it was as large as any in the last 10 years, has plateaued. The last 4 years, there's been a 4 weeks, there's been a substantial drop-off in reported flu cases, so it has plateaued and really dropped off, and that's excellent news. The predominant strain has been H3N2, which is unusual, but also good because it's one of the 4 valences that were in the flu vaccine. I still strongly recommend, if you haven't had your flu vaccine, go ahead and get it, because just because we had a first wave that's come and is going does not mean that we won't have a substantial second or even third wave. The other interesting thing about H3N2 is that it does have a proclivity for younger folks, and the highest age group was the 4 and under age group. The second highest age group was as always, the 65 and older, has been, I shouldn't say was, 65 and older age group. And although this wave does appear to be petering out, and nobody knows why it started early, nobody knows why it's petering out now, I think vigilance is always in order, and that many of the same behaviors that can mitigate transfer of any respiratory viruses remain in effect. A good fitting respirator mask, and Alex and I went back and forth early in the days of the pandemic, but it's pretty clear that at this point, a good fitting N95 or true KN95. The problem with the KN95s is the overwhelming majority of the KN95s out there might be counterfeits and might provide no protection. But if they are actual true KN95s, if they fit well, that provides excellent protection for when you're in a space, an indoor space with other folks. Hand washing, avoiding face touching, and vaccination remain in the fore. It's really, 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 really hard to know what's going on with COVID. A couple of things that are clear in the sequencing. Omicron subvariants have kind of spread out, and boy, it's an alphabet soup. BB1, BB1.1, BB1.1.7, BQ, BQ1, I can't even remember, but none of them has taken over. So one of them might be 30% in one location and another 28% in another location. So there is no surging to the front as happened with Delta and then with Omicron. I'm still struggling to understand fully what the differences are in the clinical syndromes, but we have what the guy from Sidra out of Minnesota, not Olmsted, a name like that, he does a bi-weekly update. He's a superb, if somewhat dour and pessimistic epidemiologist, but there is huge potential for more badness to come. And although from our behaviors, pandemic is over, from the point of view of viral contagion, it's not. COVID is unlikely ever to leave us altogether. So we're going to have to be figuring out what does the world post-pandemic, but not post-COVID, look like. And I think we really have to keep our ears and eyes open. What's going on in China is really quite alarming. Hopefully it's mostly quite alarming for China, but a billion people in the middle of a raging epidemic there, because although the data are very hard to get, the reliable reports, which are not data and are anecdote but summed up, tell you that the reports coming out are not accurate, and that their healthcare system, which is not best in the best of times, is struggling, and there are potentially tens, if not hundreds of millions of new cases going on in China. They've done a terrible job of vaccinating their elderly population and vaccinating their rural population. Their public health system consists of utilization of emergency room for all episodic care, and we are coming up on Golden Week, which is the largest annual migration of humans probably in the history of people on the planet, where everybody takes 8 days off and goes home, which means a huge amount of traveling. So I just think that we cannot, at this point, just start ignoring. On the other hand, it's pretty clear that there's a heterogeneity now in the outbreak, and that the overwhelming majority of people under the age of 60 and over the age of 5 are not getting severe disease, although there are some. It's still pretty clear that you get about 75% or threefold protection against severe disease and fatality if you are up to date on your vaccination. So once again, I have to encourage vaccination, and just to take care. When you're meeting in mixed age family groups, just be careful that the people who might be vulnerable are protected from the people who might not be terribly vulnerable, but might be carrying virus. So testing shouldn't be done with, masking shouldn't be done with, and great care in public gathering shouldn't be done with. And I'm done there. And anybody else who has comments, please.
I'm sure you know, but the government has issued another round of free COVID tests. You can just go online and order them up. I got mine last week, so.
Excellent point.
Took
Thanks,
about 2
Maggie.
weeks.
Good.
I ordered them right before the holidays, and they came just after New Year's, so.
So for old folks like me, there are two government programs. There's the one time that everybody's eligible to, that they renewed, and there remains, and I don't know how long it will remain, especially now that the new Congress has been seated. But for those who are Medicare, there's also a monthly allocation that you can take advantage of. And to be quite honest, I don't think it's a burden for anybody in this room, but over the counter, they're under $10 a kit. So when I strongly recommend, and my spouse and I have rigorously indulged in asking people to test day of, if you're having a mixed group, especially if if there are people who are in the wind, that is, say, going to work or having traveled, and if you have mixed age folks, asking folks when you're having get-togethers to test before you join in an enclosed space with a group of people that you're not normally exposed to, and pay attention. Thanks, Maggie. Anything else? Okay, with that, let's go to old business. Maggie, you have an update for us on the animal health ordinances?
Yes, thank you very much for, as you know, at the last meeting, I hadn't yet actually received the copy. Joan had sent it over to the lawyer, John Rice, and his recommendation was that it needed to come through one of us, which I gather in the past Maura had seen it, because she told me she, was a little bit sorry, she might have dropped the ball on it. But anyway, I got it. Thank you, David, for sending it to me during the holidays. And Maura and myself and John are going to start looking over it. It is long and lots of changes and will probably take some time, but I might be bringing it in segments to this meeting. And I did note that at the Board of Commissioners meeting last Monday, that we would be going over it. So we may need a little input from Joan here or there. I don't know that, but we can. I assume she'd be willing to answer any questions we might have about some of the changes. And that's about it. So there'll be more to come.
Well, that sounds perfect. As you say, it is long, dense,
And sorely needed.
technical, and sorely needed. So I
Yes.
think chunking it out is the way to, it's like my father, rest his soul, at the age of 90 used to shovel his driveway when we used to get snow, because when he was alive, we still used to get snow. And he'd do 5 minutes, go inside, do 5 minutes, go inside, and he would do his damn driveway. Nobody loved it, but you couldn't tell him no. I think that's the way this kind of has to go. I think, and I think that I believe that Joan said that for any technical expertise, we might be able to call on you. So I think that as you do it section by section, there might be questions as to why, but it was archaic, and we have Joan to thank for kind of realizing that and putting a huge amount of work into bringing it up to date. And I think it will be protective for the township and for the people of the township to have up-to-date animal ordinances. So thank you, Maggie. Thanks for taking that
No
on.
problem.
All right. Any other comments on that? Next item is the oral health care van project. I'll turn it over to Bob.
Okay, so we met, Donna Gear, my Director of Clinical Operations, and the Colgate people, and we met with two people from the school district, Maureen Larario, who's the Director of Nursing, I believe, and then Todd Stitzel, who's Director of HR for the school district. We met with them early November. They had said that it's a little, we wouldn't be able to do this until probably the spring. There's about, how I understand it is there's 3 elementary schools, each with about 450 children in each school, and 1 van could handle 1 school. So we'd have to do it on 3 separate days, which they were in favor of. But we're in the process of still getting the planning from the school district on whether we can go ahead and pick dates and get this done. So we don't have a definitive answer yet from Maureen or from Todd on if the school district is going to allow this to happen. So my approach is, we've emailed them a couple times, and we'll let the dust settle from the first of the year. And if we don't get any leeway, then maybe we might want to look at an activity that Radnor has on a Saturday and bring the van to a Radnor event and bring children in that way.
So your preference would be, if possible, to go with the pedal to the metal, the 3 schools, and that in the absence of being able to execute into that, the alternative would be to take it out of school district decision-making, put it into township decision-making, and do it as a more open event through township. Is that an accurate paraphrase?
That's exactly how I feel at this point.
So a couple questions that I have then. Do we have the right people from the township to get decision-making? Do we need to, is there something that Maggie or I'm volunteering for Maggie, could do to help just, their decision seems like a no-brainer to me, but do we need better insight into how that decision-making process goes? Although it did take a very long time, by the way, to get Jenny, who unfortunately couldn't make it tonight, to get a representative from school district into Board of Health. Eventually, we moved that along. So it might just be the cumbersome nature of the decision-making process.
Well, I will tell you that Maureen, the Director of Nursing, and Todd, the Director of HR, are very excited about the program, but they're not the ultimate decision makers. So
Do they need our help?
I can email them and ask them, for sure.
So you feel confident that for the moment, you have the resources that you need from this end, and it's a matter of patience at this point, and let's see how that progresses. Is that how you feel?
Yeah, I think that's the best approach, with a little prodding here and there. And then the dates would most likely be in April, because that's when the kids can go outside and they can go to the van and have the oral health screening, and it's not like a snowy winter day or a rainy day. So that would be our approach. And do 3 consecutive days, one for each school, elementary school.
Actually, I think it's a no-lose, exciting proposition, and I hope we can bring it to fruition. If not, we'll do it township basis and still make it exciting and beneficial to the township. Thanks. Okay, with that, any other old business that I might have forgotten? I took the road sign project off the list because it pretty much is now in the hands of Officer Gallagher and the township police. And our contribution was completed when Joan provided a list of what she suggested based on traffic density, traffic speed, and animal creekside and high animal density areas for 2 kinds of signs, deer crossing signs and animal protection signs. And I think that it now rests with the traffic safety organization in the township. So I'll take that off of our recurring old business. And if there's nobody else with comments on old business, I'll move to new business. I'm going to, Jenny sent me a note that she couldn't get here. She didn't have anything in particular to offer on school district update, but I will say that We did have a discussion in December. I thought it was a great idea for school districts like New York and Philadelphia to just for the New York 10 days, in Philadelphia 2 weeks, with people coming off of holidays and travel and get-togethers in a setting where you have 3 different respiratory viruses afoot, to ask students to mask. Jenny pointed out that they had made the decision in Radnor School District not to do that, but they have I'm trying to figure out the exact words that she used, but active participation on the part of staff, teachers, and students with voluntary behaviors, protecting others and self. I always remember my little brother getting an attendance award for having not been absent any day, I think, in his 4th grade year, and that was great, but I think that's a completely different culture and habit or pattern than we need to take now. I think we need to err on the side of staying home, and we also have she was very forthcoming with regard to the various technologies that allow people to continue to engage in learning and not fall as far behind when they have to be absent and when they have to work remotely. And although we all, I think, lived through the discovery of how important it is for kids to actually be in school, it's also important to protect them, and even more risky, their families who have risk. So I will ask Jenny the next meeting to give us an update on how the school district has fared over the time immediately following the holiday. Any comments?
I was gonna make a. Can you hear me? Yeah. Like the illness, my daughter goes to the middle school, and she's missed now over 2 weeks of school because of viral illness, and same with a lot of the kids, and they no longer have the Zoom option. So it is like they offered it in the first 2 years of the pandemic, and now they don't offer it at the elementary school either. So there's like an online portal where they can kind of access work, but beyond that, it's not necessarily encouraged to stay home from, a learning standpoint at this moment.
I think that we ought to take that up.
Yeah.
Topic the next month when Jenny comes in. I don't know how to address that. I think it would be a terrible shame.
Will you put your mic on? Yeah.
I think it would be a terrible shame to not take advantage of technology when we can. We're trying to have our cake and eat it too.
Yeah.
And I think that we should do whatever we can to do that. We've been fortunate in Radnor and in this part of the world in general. We have not really suffered to the extent that some communities in this country have suffered from the vicious toll of the pandemic. We've suffered from the political upheavals and the learning upheavals, but that doesn't mean that we're immune to that. And so I think we should have this as an ongoing topic and bring it back up when Jenny's here next month. Does that sound reasonable?
That'd be great. Yeah.
Okay.
I think the other thing is that there's a difference now between what we're asking kids. It used to be that if you were sick, you were probably too sick to get on Zoom. You were only home for a couple of days, and we mentioned this last month, but now we're often asking kids to stay home a little longer than when they're acutely ill, and that they could actually be doing some active learning during that time when they're not so ill but still potentially infectious.
Yeah, so that's spot on, Megan. And so we're not mandating, we're not closing down, but I think that if we can both protect and assure ongoing learning, I think that everybody wins. So Maggie, while you're up,
While I'm up, so we did have a Board of Commissioners meeting, mostly organizational, on the 3rd of January, last Monday. And we did announce the 2 vacancies on the Board of Health, as well as the other vacancies on all the other committees and commissions in town, and encouraged people, and I, again, in a separate message, encouraged people during the second portion of the board meeting to look around and see if they knew anybody that might want to join various and sundry committees. We did reconfirm liaisons to committees, so I will continue to be the liaison to the Board of Health. And the other thing is we're going to have, and I didn't address this, and I need to, Kevin Kachansky, who is our staff liaison, is a member of the National Guard, which generally doesn't affect his work and time, except for, once a month on the weekends or whatever their mandatory thing is. But he has taken an almost 1-year training position in order to learn to fly drones. And he will be off-site many times. I think he's gone now. I saw him last week, but I think he was going this week. So he's going to be, I don't think, available to us for the better part of a year. And I will ask to see if we can, have some other designated person be our staff liaison. And I just thought about it today, and I thought about it actually last week when I said goodbye to him. So I need to address that. And otherwise, there really wasn't much Board of Health related in the meetings. We did have the 2 meetings last Monday. We're mostly going over ordinances and building codes and that sort of thing, and updating lots of things. So there wasn't a whole lot that's applicable to this committee.
well, thanks for that update on Kevin. And yeah, I really appreciate hearing that and your effort to see who we can ask to provide the support to this board in his absence.
Yeah, I am going to be meeting with Bill on Wednesday, so I will put that in his ear and see if he, who he wants to have be our point person. Kevin will be answering emails and the like, but, potentially not on a daily basis, but certainly on a weekly basis.
So it's kind of nice that that it's quiet we don't have mold, we don't have Delta or Kratom or an emerging new epidemic crisis. It's been kind of the first time in the several years since I've been on the board that we haven't had. We had a vaping crisis and so on. But I think it's been good that we've been able to do our own organizational work. I essentially turn over the entire staff of the board, and Maggie, I am immensely appreciative of the support that you've provided the board. Thank you very much. Comments? I see nobody here for public participation. I don't think we have an open phone line, so I don't think we have public participation today. So in the absence of any further comments from any further members, I'd ask for a motion to adjourn. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
So moved. Meeting is adjourned. Man, I love hitting that gavel.
I remember you were very excited our first in-person meeting.
Oh, absolutely.